Welcome everyone to this week's session on the matrix conversation. And to remind you that this matrix conversation is based on Michael Hall's book, The Coaching Conversations. This is chapter 13 that we are on right now. Just a reminder, it is part of our monthly meta coaching series. We also have our Neuro-Semantics series, relationship series, and the parenting series. And I'm glad that all of you have attended one of these programs before. So again, welcome. And it's a pleasure and honor for me to be with you this evening. In the 90 minutes together, we'll be discussing on the theoretical framework, why matrix conversations, and the meta questioning that teases out the higher frames. I will pause for discussion after each main point. And I would like to invite you, if you have any questions, comments, or contributions to come up during that session, rather than wait until the end. So after each main point, I will pause. And for meta coaches, I hope that this session will be a useful reminder for you. And I would like to welcome your additional insights after each point. And for those of you who are new to this, feel free to explore further, to ask questions for clarification and all. Again, to remind you, my style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our silly human qualities. My purpose is to lighten things up, reduce being serious, and be more real. For this evening, we'll be discussing on these questions. We'll be discussing about them. Question of, is it possible to explore our matrix of frames and to wake up to the matrix of meanings that govern our sense of reality? How can we engage in a coaching conversation with a coaching client about his or her matrix without it becoming philosophical or psychological? What is it like to have a matrix conversation? How is it structured? What is the value and purpose of matrix conversations? How does that fit into the coaching relationship? Can we have a matrix conversation that sounds conversational and down to earth? And before I continue on, I would like to welcome BJ, who's just joined us all the way from, I don't know, is it Pattaya or are you still in Chiang Mai?
I just got back to Bangkok. So I'm in Bangkok for a couple of days now. Came in for my vaccine.
Okay. Okay, so are you fully vaccinated now, or is the first one?
Complete.
Okay, good. Good to hear that. Right. I'm just starting to share screen. However, just checking. Are you able to see my screen?
No.
I think I'd better do that again. Oh dear, it's not.
You're seeing a black screen that says Marzuki has started screen sharing. Your camera is frozen and the rest of the screen is just a black screen.
Okay, let me just I'll just reconnect my iPad.
Well, maybe we get the Marzuki matrix without slides today.
Good.
There
Good that we've got the screen. Yes. That's a relief for me. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the first point. for this evening, it's on the theoretical framework of the matrix conversation. The idea that we live inside the matrix of frames is derived from the meta-states model. The meta-states model is, and the meta-states model is built around the simple idea that we not only experience states, so that's the primary level, as you can see on this on the shared screen. That's the primary level, primary state, but we also experience the world. We also experience the states about our states. So that's at the secondary level or the meta states level. So this is the when we talk about the matrix model, we are going into the meta states. We are using the meta states model. This means that there is more to our mind than just what's immediately on our mind. What's immediately on our mind is that internal movie. That's the one. However, there are higher thoughts. We go beyond our internal movie. So that's meta, into the words, the language. We are thinking about what's in our internal movie. We have thoughts embedded in other thoughts, thoughts that are outside of our awareness. We have frames within frames that make up the mental concepts of our ideas. This is the matrix of our mind, body, emotion system. In the primary states, we are aware, yet our awareness is mostly about things out there in the external world, the real world in which we live, work, and play. We are aware of see, hear, feel objects, our boss, the paycheck, the tone of our the tone of voice our partner uses, the house we live in, the car that we drive, the people walking on the streets, the sound of the traffic going on. So that's at the primary level. In meta states, we shift our awareness from the outside world to our inner world. Our awareness reflects back onto ourselves. We become aware of our thoughts, our feelings, our experiences, our hopes and dreams, our fears and angers, our dreads and shames, our vision and love. In this process, our most human quality emerges, our self-reflexive consciousness. It is the reflexive nature of our awareness that creates layer upon layer of awareness. And from the layering, we create worlds from within our minds. In primary states, our thoughts and emotions come and go. We experience our awareness like a stream of consciousness, always flowing, moving, changing, altering. Thoughts, memories, imaginations, fears, emotions, loves, desires, they come and go. They pop into the court of our mind like thought balls, tennis balls. So these are not tennis balls, these are thought balls that come and go. And this thought seduce us, trouble us, distract us. This is the mind that we try to control by commands when we want to concentrate and focus. In meta states, there is greater stability to our thoughts and emotions. As a higher frame of thought and emotions about the lower, we carry them with us. We keep them with us. That's why they seem solid and real. They make up our attitude, our way of looking at the world, our frame of mind. Learn anything, and especially overlearning something, and the thoughts and emotions about that learning become so familiar so established that they become our mental disposition. That awareness then becomes the mental context or atmosphere in which we live. In this way that we create our matrix. In the beginning, we were born without a matrix of frames. Then, as we slowly become conscious, we began differentiating ourselves from mother and family. We began to adopt their frames and use them to build our own matrix. All this happened unconsciously. We didn't even know we were doing it. Our mind was simply hungry for creating a structure that could make sense of things. So we adopted ways of thinking and feeling about things as a frame of reference. What we didn't know is that the slow absorption of mental and emotional frames became the matrix that today makes up our mental schema or model of the world. And that is also part of the danger, because we adopted matrices or frames from when we were young, when our thinking process, our cognitive abilities were not yet fully developed. So we adopted frames that were immature. So that's where the conversation about matrix is so important, so that we have the matrix of frames that are healthy and mature. We first absorb our first matrix from the frames of meaning, and then we begin creating many of our own unique frames. Most of it we construct haphazardly, bits and pieces from school, TV, conversations, parties, traumas, novels, music, TV, serials. These comprise our maps that we use to navigate the world. We use them to navigate work and career, handling people, relationships, managing our own states, negotiating, finding love, making money, and all of those things that we do as a human being. Some of them will work, many of them will not. The matrix describes how our mind, body, emotion system works as a whole and create our felt sense of reality. It creates our felt sense of reality. We don't deal with reality directly, but indirectly through our matrix of frames upon frames upon frames. And we have sub-matrices within our overall matrix. We have a matrix of frames that we use to create and maintain meaning and set intention. So let's take a look at the matrix model. As a person, the first matrix is the state matrix, the grounding matrix of our mind, body, emotion state, where everything in the entire matrix come together to express itself. We express it through our saying and our doing. The next matrix is the meaning matrix, the spiraling matrix of meaning making at multiple levels that defines and interprets things. The next matrix is the matrix of intention. This speaks about our purposes, desires, outcomes, aims, and spirits behind our meaning. From these three process matrices, we move into the 5 content matrices. The first one is the self matrix, our sense of self, self-definition, identity, and multiple thoughts and feelings about worth, value, dignity, confidence. Then comes our power or resource matrix, our sense of efficacy to take action, to cope and to master the world, our powers and resources. This refers to our abilities, our competencies, our skills. Next is the matrix of others or relationship, our internal audience of friends and enemies, lovers, mentors, proteges, associates, our social panorama, all of our thoughts and feelings about people, human nature, and social emotions. Next comes our matrix of time, our sense of events, past, present, and future, our sense of mortality, origin, destiny, scheduling. And the fifth content matrix is the matrix of our world, our mappings of all the worlds out there that we can visit and navigate. So again, this is the matrix model. Starting with the grounding state matrix, we have our meaning matrix. Then behind the meaning matrix are our intention matrix. And the content of these matrices is about self, power, others, time, and the world. And these are the matrices that we hold in mind as we go out our world. As I'm going out being a business person, I have all of these matrices about my business. As a grandfather, then I have these matrices about grandfathering or parenting or whatever it is. So we don't ever leave home without it. We move in this world through our matrices. Okay, so I'm going to pause here so that I can invite questions, comments from each and every one of you. And I'd like to say welcome to Samson, who just joined us. Welcome, Samson. And just go ahead. Let me hear your comments, your questions, and especially those of you who are meta coaches, share your experiences with respect to this matrix conversation. Just go ahead.
There we are. Since learning the matrix, I have found that as a foundation for launching some of my coaching programs. So I'll have programs that, multi-month programs, multi-session programs that are designed around this journey. Because every one of these matrix brings with it its own set of belief systems that then we run through whatever our, whether you use a Byron Katie belief deconstruction or whatever you're going to use, but it brings into their awareness what we're unaware of, the client was unaware of, that was ruling their life, and they were just calling it fate. So since learning it, it has become a structured part of a program, not just something I have in the background, a tool. It's actually become the foreground of coaching conversations for a specific program.
Thank you, BJ, for sharing that. And I appreciate your sharing that, because what you've just mentioned I would use the word just came to me because it took me years to fully appreciate this matrix model. I think it was not until the fifth time that Michael explained the matrix model, then only, now it made sense. Yes, now I'm bringing in, as you mentioned, bringing it to the foreground instead of the background, because it creates all that much difference for the client.
Well, and if I may add, I bring it to my foreground, not to the client's foreground. So often I'm starting with a client in the early relationship where, perhaps it's face-to-face or lunch. This is just how I structure my conversation. So we may be eating and it appears casual and flowing, but I'll start with, so, what are some of the things you're looking to work on? Intention. And I don't bring state. I bring state at the very end. And then, so that's what you want to do. So what's your industry like right now? So we're getting the world conversation. Oh, the industry's in a downturn, the pandemic stuff. Okay. What about within your company? The others conversation. So I structure my conversation from the matrix, and then at the end, I'm able to repeat back what this person was not aware of, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, we have a lot of work to do." Yeah, well, I could be the coach for you if you're interested. So that's really how it works for me.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else has got any comments or questions? No? Okay, so let's move to the next point, which is on why matrix conversation. Why matrix conversations? Coaching always involves conversations about a client's inner and outer game. Clients engage us in a coaching relationship usually because they want to improve their outer game of performance in business, career, health, relationship, and all the various facets of their lives. Sometimes the rare client will come ready to work on his or her inner game of frames. More typically, we begin with the outer game about managing people, starting a new business, writing a book, and so forth. And then we backtrack to the frames of mind that drive or interfere with the outer game. We engage in matrix conversation to explore the matrix, to more deeply and thoroughly understand the client, and to facilitate the client's self-understanding. After all, it all makes sense. Everything everybody does makes sense. How it makes sense? Well, that's another question. That is the question we explore in the matrix conversation. Doing that involves inviting the client to go inside and use the very meta-awareness by which he or she created the matrix to explore, detect, understand, and transform that matrix. So this explains why people need coaches. Left on our own, we are likely to get lost in the labyrinth of our own matrix. Using our reflexivity to explore our own mind, we get into loops, go round in circles, spiral downward into nasty spins that make matters worse. We create fire-breathing dragons that can sabotage from the inside. Many philosophers and psychologists encountered this infinite regress of our self-reflexive consciousness, drew the over-hasty conclusion that it's better left alone, assuming that we cannot master the spiraling reflexivity of our mind. Yet, we can master the spiraling reflexivity of our own mind. We just need to learn how to do it. It's a matter of being coached to run our own brain more effectively. Another reason for matrix conversations. With an experienced meta coach who can serve as a guide through the canyons of the mind, we can turn on the light and treat our frames with respect and honor they deserve. We can learn to handle the counterintuitive and paradoxical nature of our mind, and we can learn how to construct powerfully wonderful frames that enhances and bless. From matrix conversations, we can also create robust matrices of self, power, time, other, and world, as well as meaning and intention, so that we experience a complete transformation. It shifts us so that we begin living, as it were, in a new world, inside a new canopy of consciousness. Yes, it appears as if it is a new world because we've created new frames, new ways of looking at it. Then, by installing and sustaining new and higher frames of mind, our attitude changes. Our ability to translate what's in our mind into everyday action becomes a congruent dynamic. And we feel more resourceful, curious, playful, loving, and optimist than we have ever imagined possible. In the last couple of days, I've been attracted to this YouTube video by a traveler by the name of Drew Binsky. His target is to travel to all the countries in the world. So he's short of 3 more countries. And what attracted me to his videos was it appears as if all the countries, not all, there are some exceptions, it is as if all of the countries that he went to are wonderful, are magical, and the people are really beautiful human beings. And as I'm watching one of his video every day, today the video that I saw was about Turkey. I begin to notice that he's running a very powerful matrix about people and about the world, that people are wonderful human beings. They are doing the best that they can. And he goes around looking for those, looking for the good in people. And that's why his experiences, no matter the experiences that he had in Afghanistan or Turkey or Malaysia or Brunei, he finds beautiful, wonderful human beings because he has those matrices in play, and he looks at the world through those matrices, and his videos are a joy to watch. So that's why we want to go into this matrix conversation to be aware about our matrices. Are they helping us or are they sabotaging us? Okay, so I'm going to pause there and invite anyone, if you have any questions or comments that you would like to make. Just go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Maszūki.
Yes, Dini.
Yeah, I was just, from your talk just now, I was just wondering if this matrix conversation model could somehow be more to be like a way to bridge the generation gap between like me and my parents. Because as this one means that I keep saying on Twitter, it's like Asian parents, they rather believe the WhatsApp forward messages rather than their own children when it comes to very crucial information, you know? So it's like, sometimes I feel like I cannot get through to them. It's like, there's too much of a gap between us. Or somehow somewhere went wrong.
Thank you. So that goes on to show how our frames shape our understanding and the way that we approach things. BJ, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, I think what you shared in how you've watched the videos and how that linked to the generational is not only as a coach, maybe we use the matrix as a way for servicing information from our client. But when you are comfortable with the matrix, it shapes how you hear other people talking. It shapes how you experience the videos. And so when we have sort of a real integration of the matrix, we may be looking at an individual when they speak, but we're hearing from their frames, we're hearing from their matrix. And that helps us, if it is to see where it's generational. So we don't get into conflict with the individual, we respect the frame and we relate to the frame, to the matrix, rather than to the individual. Because the individual, we think, well, why can't you understand me? We don't talk to the individual. We're now listening to the matrix. And it shifts our listening, I think, as you demonstrated with those travel videos.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is where when you are listening to people's frames, it creates a shift in yourself that whenever that, let's say there is a conflict in opinion, you don't see that as a conflict between individuals. You are just noticing that, oh, they are holding this frame, so that's why they have that kind of opinion. So that makes our relating with people all that so much easier. So that is also an area that the matrix, the matrices here makes a lot of sense when it comes to understanding human behavior, because now we are not just looking at the specific behavior, we are not just specific words, we are beginning to detect where they are coming from, and that helps us to understand the person better. I hope that helps, Dini.
Yes, totally. It just made me realize that it's a frame and everyone have a frame, so it has to resonate somehow. I cannot just be putting a wall or they are putting a wall, you know. But I kind of agree with you, both you and BJ, what you've been talking just now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else has got any comments? No? So let's move to the next point, the third main point for this evening, which is the meta questions. Meta questioning that teases the higher frames. So this is where the primary tool that we use in teasing out the meta structures, the matrices, these are the meta questions. At all meta levels in our mind are made up of the same stuff that governs the primary level, the thoughts, feelings, and physiology. We use our see, hear, feel representations and words to build up meanings at meta levels to create the mental matrices. So the set of questions that I'm going to be bringing to you shortly, the meta questions, are various categories that offer lots of ways to explore and elicit these higher level structures. And as you use this, remember, the different categories are not different things, just other ways of expressing the same thing. So we use 15 categories of meta questions. The first category is the meaning, significance. It's about the ideas that we hold in mind, asking the question, what does that mean to you? That's the first category. The second category, matrix meta question, is the belief or belief that is to confirm as real. This, we are referring to the ideas that we affirm, validate, and confirm. Asking the question, So what do you believe about that? Next category is the category of frame or reference. The ideas that we set as frame of reference and mental context. The next category is the category of permission, allowing, permitting, embracing, or approving. Ideas about allowance and permission versus ideas about prohibition and taboos. Asking the question, are you giving yourself permission to do that? What's preventing you from doing that? So it refers to this category, permission. Next is prohibition, taboo, censor, disallow. Ideas that we do not allow and permit, but prohibit and taboo. So what are the things that you are prohibiting yourself from doing? What are you tabooing yourself from speaking or saying? Next category is the category of feeling. Love, hate, care, joy, emotional ideas, and feeling judgments we bring to other ideas. So how do you feel about that? So that's a meta question about feeling. Next one is the category of thought, notion, idea, word. Ideas of thoughts that we bring to some previous idea or thought. So as you notice that, what do you think about that? So asking about the thought that people have about something. Next category is the category of appreciation, appreciate or celebrate. Ideas of appreciation or value used to frame other ideas. So what do you appreciate about that? Next, the category of value, importance, count, honor. Ideas we value and treat as important or significant, which we esteem. What is important to you about that? What do you appreciate about that? So this is the facet of value, importance. Next, the category of decision, choice, will, pros and cons. Ideas that we cut off from other ideas as choices. We say yes and no to. We say yes to something, we say no to another. So that is the cut off point. Incision, decision. So what are you deciding about that? Next category is the category of intention, want, desire. Ideas about motives, intention, desires, and wants. So what is your intention about doing this? That's a meta question about intention. Next category is the category of outcome, goal, agenda, hidden agenda. Ideas we have about goals, outcomes, and desired ends. So what is the desired outcome that you want to have about this, say, coaching that we are going to go through together? So the outcome we want to achieve. Next category is the category of expectation, anticipation. Ideas we have about what we anticipate will happen. What do you expect from doing this? So that's the category of expectation. Next one is the category of rules, demand, should, must, shall, authorize, injunctions, policy. Ideas we use as rules for the games we play in our lives. Model operators that generate our modus operandi. We create rules that I must do this. So what what rule are you using that you must do something? So questioning the rules that you use in place for your decisions. And the final one here is the category of definition, class, category, definition, labels, ideas that we have that set the categories in our mind for understanding things. Asking, so how are you defining this particular activity? So these are the meta questions that will allow us to explore the matrix. So we call this the meta questions. Using meta questions, we are exploring what's in the matrix up there. Okay, so those are the 15 meta questions that allows us to tease out the higher frames so that we can see those frames. And when I say we can see, we here refers to both the coach and the client, because the frames in my mind tend to be transparent to me. It is not until someone asks me a meta question, only then I will be aware about that. And that will bring the clarity that I need in my life. Okay, so that's that point on meta questioning. So I would like to open up for discussion. Any questions or discussion? That's basically a very quick overview of the meta questions, and we explore the meta questions in more detail in meta NLP and also in APG, actually. Okay, go ahead. Any questions there? Any insights, any sharings that you would like to do? Yes, Daniel.
Yeah, Mr. Marzuki, I just want to ask a question. The other day, I had this conversation with my daughter, both of them. So we were just talking about asking each other, what do you appreciate about you, about me? So is that considered a meta questions? Like when I ask my daughter, what do you appreciate about your sister?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that exploring their matrix?
Yes, yes. So what do you appreciate about your sister? What do you appreciate about that? So that's the category of appreciation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Anwar, BJ?
It's good to see all those 15 categories, because I haven't referenced the material. I still remember the My Pride BIV, meaning, permission, rules, intention, decision, expect, belief, value. And so it's good to see how many more meta questions there were, how many other ways there are to go at it, because I really have just been using these 2, 4, 6, these 9 that I recall. So seeing that whole 15, I was writing notes like crazy, going, oh, I'm gonna add this to my toolbox.
Thank you, DJ. Dr. Anwar?
No, I'm okay. I have no comments. Thank you.
Oh, and maybe one more thing is, because we're using language and words land different for everyone, so we may use several of these questions for each part, each one of each item in the matrix.
Yeah.
So it could be, what do you appreciate about your sister? What do you believe about your sister? What's your expectation from your sister? What have you decided about your sister? So we use more than one to get all the richness of their matrix.
Absolutely, BJ. I like the metaphor that Michael uses, the metaphor of the diamond of consciousness. As we look at the diamond, there are so many facets. We we look from one angle, it will look this way, another facet, it will look in a different way. However, we are looking at that same diamond. So similarly with the meta questions, we are looking at one subject, however, from different facets, from the facets of importance, meaning, beliefs, values, decisions. So it's about the same thing. And it's my feeling is that that's what makes human beings so so wonderful, so wondrous in that sense, because we are not like paper, which is flat. We are not flat. We look at human being. There are so many different facets, and to a large extent, it for me, I find it a way of honoring and respecting another human being, because we have all of these different facets. A human being might do something that may be obnoxious to me. However, that person is not an obnoxious person. It's just that facet of that person. In another facet, that person can be so lovely to an extent. So it's about exploring the different facets there. Okay. So with that, let me bring our discussion to the summary of our discussion for this evening. It's a short discussion. To sum up, probably I would just want to mention over here that coaching to another person's matrix of frames is the inner game. This is where we go in and find the rules of the game that govern any particular experience, especially in the context of when someone is struggling in the outer game, trying to get them to solve the problem from the outer game may not be so resourceful for that person. So just to go into the inner game, finding the frames that are preventing them from excelling in the outer game. So that is where we go in to find the rules of the game that govern any particular experience. A matrix conversation, by its very nature, has the power to change a game completely. By moving inside to the key leverage places of framing and meaning, a meta coach is more able to quickly and efficiently bring transformation to entire mind-body system. It is in this way that change can become even more fun and enjoyable. We have hundreds of meta questions that enable us to hold a matrix conversation. The trick lies in realizing that there are no logical levels, but only psychological facets of the experience. Matrix conversations move up and beyond conscious awareness to the larger mind that is outside of awareness. It takes us to the frameworks that we have grown up in and built, usually unconsciously. In that, the matrix conversation can be very trancy, that is hypnotic. My personal experience of how having this conversation, this matrix conversation, and in my case was the conversation that I had with myself, to a large extent, it's life-saving, because in 2018, I think, I decided to ascend Mount Kinabalu. When I reached Laban Rata, where we should rest before we make our final ascent, I was I experienced hypothermia. So because I was not eating going up, my training has been short training. So when I train, I walk, I don't eat or drink. However, going up Kinabalu is a long walk. It's about how many hours? I think about 6 hours going up. And because I was not eating going up, by the time I reached Laban Rata, my energy was completely drained and I went into hypothermia. And as I was doing my best to recover from that, I was lost in that matrix of my own mind. That was the what do we call that when hallucination. I began to hallucinate inside there, and understanding the structure of the working of the mind allows me to step in as a coach to coach my own thinking, to be asking the critical questions that brought me back to sanity, making decision that ultimately saved my life. I would say it saved my life because in that conversation, I was asking myself the question, because part of me is the ego speaking, the part of me wanting to just go on, get right up there. I'm a trainer. I train people to excel, so I can't give up now. That kind of talk, and asking the question of asking the question of how will you know that you are healthy enough to go up there? So how will you know you are healthy enough? So that's the evidence question. And I said, okay, when I wake up at 1 in the morning for our supper, how I will know is that if I were to eat food during that time, I can bring the food into my stomach. If I feel nauseous, then I know that I'm not well. So having all of that conversation to bring to that particular point evidence procedure to tell me whether I'm well enough or not allows me to make that decision on that fateful evening. Because when I woke up at 2 in the morning, we went to the place where we were supposed to have our supper. The first mouthful that I put into my mouth, the nausea just came back again. I knew for sure I wasn't healthy enough, and I went to the and I was really calm at that time. Went to the leader and said, I'm not healthy enough. I will not go up. I will not put all of you in danger. I'll rest and just go down with you when you come back from the mountain. So this skill of being able to go up there and talk to yourself, in my case, talk to myself at that time, literally saved my life on that night. Otherwise, my ego would have pushed me up that to the top of the mountain and probably cause danger to others. So I'd like to open up discussion to every one of you. Go ahead.
That's a wonderful story about how it saved you from further injury, and that was mastering your inner game. And I think if any of us have been aware of what's been going on in the world of athletics lately, we've seen the inner game presented a lot. The inner game was first coined by Timothy Galloway around tennis, right? He was a tennis player at Harvard, the tennis coach, and he wrote the book Inner Game of Tennis. And we saw in Wimbledon, Naomi Osaka lose her inner game, which stopped her from playing on the court, her outer game. And the winner last night, the British woman who won, or 2 days ago in UK, had an inner game issue, worked through it, and won the tournament just a couple of days ago. And those weren't maybe injury related, but Simone Biles in Tokyo just a few weeks ago, when her inner game was off, it was risky to her health if she would have competed. And so when it comes into our awareness, we can see it everywhere. That everyone is living their matrix, and you can read it in stories, and you can hear it in interviews, and you can hear it in your children or in your partner. And most importantly, and this is the hardest one, is the one you mastered, Marzuki, is looking at your own. Because you can't see it in the mirror. When you look in the reflection, you don't see that behind you, but it's there. And so it was very skillful how you were able to bring that out. So thank you for sharing that and really making the matrix come to life by saving your life.
Thank you, Vijay. I'm so glad you mentioned about Simone Biles, and I'm sure when she made the decision to not continue with the team event, I'm sure there were thousands of atheists out there who would just throw all sorts of rubbish at her. I'm so glad that she's able to realize that, okay, her game is off, and then to make that decision for the I would say for the health of the team and also for her own personal health. I mean, if you are flipping and twisting and turning multiple times in the air, just one split second of loss of concentration can cause death. So I'm glad that she recognized that. So this is where the ability to use your body, use your mind as a feedback mechanism to tell you whether you are well or not, and to be able to be human enough to realize, okay, I'm not well, and I'll stop doing this until I'm well. So that, to me, what she has demonstrated is wonderful. Not to be driven by the ego of wanting to get more medals, realizing that I'm not well enough, and to be able to make I would say a wise decision on that point. Thank you. So Daniel asked, can you give some examples of meta questions in the category of frame or reference? Yeah, the question can be as simple as, how are you framing this? What is your frame of reference about this? So let's say you are having a meeting in the having a meeting in the office, and then and you have an objection, let's say, to a proposal. You're having a proposal about a project that you're carrying on, and then somebody is saying, no, we cannot do that, we shouldn't be doing that. So meta question of frame is that, to be asking the question, so what is your frame of reference? What is your reference to say that this project cannot be implemented? So it's a straightforward question like that. Vijay, you have any other examples?
Well, I had an example with that recently with someone about who was picketing at a hospital in an anti-COVID, anti-vaccine initiative. And so, you know, and I said, so what is your frame for that? Right? What is your frame of reference? And it was, well, look at this document here. Okay, well, according to the document, you're perfectly valid in your protest. But now, have you looked at the source of the document? And then when you look, he looked at the source. Well, when you look at the source of the document, the entire argument falls apart. And it was like, oh my goodness, how have I been misled? And so when we look at the frame, that's wonderful. That's really quality controlling the ingredients or the material that their matrix makes perfect sense on. Had that document been accurate, it would make perfect sense to protest at a hospital.
Right.
Enough
Thank
said
you.
about that.
Yeah, I was reading the news the other day. A guy went to the hospital to protest what you're mentioning there, to protest, and then a couple of days later, he's in the hospital being treated for COVID. So the nurse who was attending him was the very nurse that he abused verbally. The frame of reference. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Thank you, Samson.
Sorry, Masuki. This idea that we shouldn't do self-coaching. I think that's one of the articles somewhere I read, this idea of self-coaching. You know, and Michael, I think, stopped that process of when is not allowed to do self-coaching. Is it when you have another coach coaching you, or?
Yeah. The thing is that I can't answer the question of when it is not allowed because I don't know. Maybe BJ has other ideas. However, from my own personal perspective, is that when it comes to self-coaching, one is that we can hear our own cognitive distortions. Sometimes somebody else, a coach, hearing it can bring it to our attention, because what we tend not to hear are what's in our perceptual filters. Our meta programs kick in, so we cannot notice them because they are invisible, transparent. So that's why self-coaching cannot, I will use the word, cannot replace having somebody else to coach, because somebody else coaching us can hear in our languages the distortions, the meta programs that are running that we are not aware of. So that's where self-coaching will not replace having another coach for us. So in a limited way, when you have the skill of coaching, what happened in my personal experience, yes, it helped. However, I know for a fact that I will not be able to catch all of, so that the word that we use is blindside. We, as a person, we are blindsided by our perceptual filters, by our frames, by our meta programs. So we are blindsided by those. So another coach will be able to hear, detect, and able to feed that, mirror that to us. So that's why one of the skills in coaching is the skill of mirroring the words that the client uses. Because when I, as a person, I say something, I don't really notice what the words that I'm saying until it is mirrored back, and then I hear, did I really say that? So this is the area whereby self-coaching cannot, self-coaching cannot totally replace coaching by a qualified coach. Yeah. BJ, you have anything to add?
I think your answer really is 100% complete. You know, it's that old line of wherever you go, there you are. And in all the research of cognitive biases, the most dangerous of any bias is the one where you think you've handled your bias. Now, that said, there are self-coaching scripts for certain applications where I've created for clients, which is where you have to layer in all of those quality control questions. So for example, we would say, what are your frames of reference? Who wrote the documents that you're referencing? Who paid for the documents to be written that you're referencing? And what is the motivation behind them? You know, like how much water are we supposed to drink a day? How many of these are we supposed to drink a day? Everyone knows, right? How many, Marzuki?
8 glasses.
8 glasses, right? And we can all have the frame of reference. You can all Google and find the article that says you should drink 8 glasses of water a day. And then you can see that the research that funded the article was by Nestle, which is in the business of bottled water. So, you know, if you, when it's for certain areas of specificity, so not general coaching, then I would create a structured self-coaching script that, you know, goes as deep as if it's a predictable scenario, it's predictable questions. But in general, Anwar, you know, when you have to, if you're the only coach you got, that's the best coach you have. If you have the access for someone else, as Marzuki mentioned, with the value of what they can hear and what they can see is powerful.
I think during one of the sessions, the previous ISNS community meeting session where we were playing around with cognitive distortions, and as the question, the exercise that we had was, during this COVID situation, which of the cognitive distortions that came out from us? So there was a list there, and as I was going through that list, I noticed that I can't relate to any of those cognitive distortion. So it appeared as if that I was free of cognitive distortion. The moment it appeared as that, I said, no, it can't be. It can't be. I couldn't be free of any cognitive distortion. And when I mentioned that to Michael, and then Sean, he chipped in, Marzuki, aren't you discounting? And I went, so that they are transparent until somebody hears our words, what we are saying. Only then we are able to notice that. So I went there, and I was quite shocked when Sean said that, aren't you discounting? Whoa, I missed that one altogether. Yeah, and as BJ mentioned, the greatest danger is when you think that you are free of biases. That's a very big danger there. So in my case, what I typically do is I do my best to even read articles that I don't agree with. That's in order to keep a balance. I do not only read articles that agree, because that fits into my confirmation bias, but I want to hear the arguments from the other side. Okay, so yes, that's the end of the session for this evening. I appreciate everyone being here. Before we end, as usual, I would like to invite each and every one of you, if you'd like to say a few things, your comments before we end the session. So let me begin with the bottom of my screen, Samson. Samson, is there anything that you would like to say before we end the session?
Yeah, thank you very much for this wonderful conversation. Having to understand a lot about the matrix model, where you have intention, how you make meaning out of it, and looking at the outside world, the timing, and the self, the power you possess in terms of the conversation. It really adds up to me, and I will be using it in most of my work and in activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samson. And over to you, Dini. Are you there or are you away, Dini? Okay. She's put that I'm away sign. Moving over to Dr. Anwar. Go ahead.
I'm good. Yeah, go back to reading this again. I don't know whether you can see this.
Okay.
Yeah, good review again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. And BJ?
Thank you so much for your generosity in organizing and taking the time to share. I know you have a very full life, and to gift us with this is great, whether it's new or in my case, a reminder and showing me some pieces I've missed. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vijay. Appreciate that. And Danielle?
Yeah, thank you, Marzuki, for the sharing tonight. Honestly, even I learned about this many years ago, I don't think I fully understand it. And seeing the 15 categories today, it helped me to actually strengthen my understanding about it. So because every time, like Simon, you know Simon, whenever he asked me that, Danielle, why don't you ask some meta questions? So I was like, what is meta questions? So yes. So I find it very difficult to understand. But with tonight's session, I think I have a better understanding. I won't say 100% understand it yet, but I think with that I can start practicing some, and hopefully, you know, with the more sessions coming, it helped me to understand it better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. And last but not least, Guat Cheng.
Thank you, Marzuki. It's a refresh class for me. I finished reading the book already.
Okay.
Then now I'm refreshed all my memory.
Thank you, Guat Cheng. And moving on to Dini, do you have anything to say before we end, Dini?
Oh yeah, I'm back. Okay, so this is probably my first time in a deep conversation and session about matrix conversations, because I haven't found any use for it for me yet, because I do art historians and architecture, so most of the things I dealt with are dead people's studies and conversations and stuff. So it's not really a two-way conversation at most times, but this is interesting. I think maybe I can find a way to apply it to, see research finding in another light or something. It's kind of promising. That's it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. So with that, everyone, I really appreciate your being here this evening. I hope to see you again in the next session. So with that, thank you. Take care, stay healthy, stay safe, and I hope to see you again the next time. So good night and bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.